So for today, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you how to go about and create what is called color isolations. And this is what we're going to be working with for the next couple days. And once we wrap up today, I will you can go out and start getting pictures and start working on your isolations. But when we look at color isolations, and we'll start off with this picture here. It was one that I took when I was in uh, Israel studying abroad. It's Capernaum. It's on the Sea of Galilee. But what I'm going to do is when I say color isolation, okay, what I'm referring to is a component in a picture that where I isolate one color of that picture so that I have uh, everything else in black and white or desaturating. Okay, when I talk about desaturation, that is removing color in a picture. Okay, so saturation refers to how vibrant that color is. Desaturating removes all of the color from uh, from a particular image. So we'll be showing you, and we'll be talking a little bit about that uh, through today, and showing you how to do that in Photoshop. Now, there are a couple different ways, and I'm going to post a video on how to do this on Schoology so that you have access to it, and you can actually pause it, rewatch it, so it's your own little mini video tutorial. But what I'm going to do is, because there are several different ways, I'm going to show you three different methods that you can use to accomplish this. The first method, I'm going to use this picture here, and we're going to look at uh, uh, and use our quick selection tool. Okay, and that's going to be our primary mechanism that we're going to be using for this example. And when I'm doing this, I've went into my quick selection tool, and I have uh, the uh, I have the quick selection tool that I'm going to go in, and the pink aspects here to see to isolate the pink component of the picture here. So I'm just going to go in, I'm just going to select a couple of the different pink domes here. Okay, and remember, if you have a quick selection, or if you have something, I'm sorry, there, within your, you get a selection that you don't, yeah, part of the selection that you don't need, go into and subtract from selection. And so I've done that. I've subtracted that part of the selection, and I'm going to go back in and select this part and hit the pink domes. All right, and I've got part of, if I really want to get into close detail, what I would do is I would zoom in and I could subtract from the selection there and really trim up what I have selected. Okay, so from here, what I'm going to do is I am going to come into where it says select, and I'm going to select the inverse. Okay, and what I'm doing there is going to take, and it is going to uh, basically select everything except for that initial selection that I had. Okay, and when I do that, and I'm going to zoom out here, after I've done that, I'm going to come up to where it says image adjustments, and I'm going to go to desaturate and look at what happens here. Okay, the entire picture becomes desaturated except for those areas that I showed you. Okay, and this is something that you can look at and see and experience there when you're looking at doing desaturation or color isolations. So I'm going to go Control D to deselect, and I've got the pink domes there, with the exception of that one because I did not have that selected. Those colors are isolated, everything else is in black and white. Okay, so for this method, and you can go back and you can look at your history, what you can do is go through, and I opened it up, I went through with my quick selection and I selected the different areas, and once I did that I went to my select inverse, okay, right up here, and then I went down to image, adjustments, desaturate, and voila, it isolated the pink colors there. So that is one method that you can do, okay, to isolate colors. Now the next one that I'm going to show you, and like I said, I'm going to post a video about this, and here in about 10 minutes I'm going to cut you loose and you can go finish up your potato head and start getting some pictures for your isolation project. What you're going to do is look at, for this next one, okay, and this was a picture that I took at school last year right outside the donut. It's a sunflower that was blooming. It's got a lot of rich, vibrant colors to it, so that's why this is going to be really good, a really good example. For this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take where it says background and I'm going to duplicate it, okay, and make a copy of it. And for this one, I'm just going to keep it, saved as background copy, and I'm going to click OK. Now, working on this with this method, I'm going to make sure that I'm in the top layer, the copy layer, and I'm just going to go straight up to the image adjustments, and I'm going to desaturate this whole entire layer. Okay. Now you may be like, well, why do we have, it's all black and white now. How are we going to isolate certain colors or certain parts of the picture? Okay, that's where we're going to come back into our quick selection tool, and I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to add to my selection. Okay, and I've got a smaller brush here, and that gives you a little bit more detail. We're going through. Like for example, I'm going through right now, and I'm getting all of the yellow leaves or yellow petals of the flower. Okay, and I can, if I really want to spend time, for this example's sake, I'm just going to get part of the flower. Actually, I'll be a little bit, we'll go. Alright, so I'm getting the components selected around the flower, and then I'm going to come in and subtract from selection so I can bring in, remove some of the sky part, and make sure you're still in that background copy layer that you're working whenever you do this method. Alright, so I've got this part here, and I can come in, and if I remove that part, and this is where working with layers and everything really comes in handy. So I've got most all of the sky part, and it's probably going to miss some. Like right there, I know I missed part, or I removed some of the selection from the petal, but we'll get that here in a second. Okay, and then here. Alright, so in this one we'll take a little bit of practice with getting some experience with exactly what you're selecting in this part. Okay, and so I've got pretty much the entire flower. I'm going to just add, just for the effect here, I'm going to bring in, go back to add to the selection. There we go, to get as much of the petal as possible. Alright, and so once you get everything kind of tied up and it's looking fairly neat and everything, what I'm going to do with this method, okay, and you can see, grab that little bit of the petal, okay. So once I have done this part, okay, and I've got everything selected that I want to isolate, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit. With this method, okay, once I have done that, what I'm going to do is just simply hit the delete button on my keyboard, and voila. And I could have, if I wanted to, actually I'll go back and I'll show you here this momentarily, but I could remove this part of the center part of the sunflower, and it would have, that part would have been desaturated and stayed black and white. But what I've got here is this, you know, the yellow part of the petal here, and you can see where I got the green and some of the blue sky there, and that because I didn't fully remove that part from the selection. But what this method is doing is it is taking the and I'll hide the background. What it is actually doing is it's taking out and cutting out that portion of the picture and exposing and revealing what's underneath, and that's the colorful part of the picture for this method. Okay, and so that is something that I could do. I'm going to go back in here, and I'm just going to actually remove, I'm going to make this brush a little bit bigger, just so, here we go, there we go. So I'm removing this part of the selection, and this is where playing around and experimenting around with this will come in handy. And but once I have removed this component from the selection, add that back in, and this is where working with all the different quick selection tools comes in. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit delete, and you can see how that has, and I'm going to go Control D to deselect, but that shows you how you can isolate certain parts of a picture, okay, not just one color, but a certain part, because clearly you can see I got some greens there and some blue of the background sky. So that is something that you have there for you to look at. Okay, so with that, the next component that I'm going to show you or the next phase that I'm going to show you is how to take and this is a picture that I took in my backyard with some peppers in my garden. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and go up to select color range, and when I do that, wherever you see the white, that is going to be the area that's selected. Now the fuzziness part is how selective of the shade of color that I picked. So for example, I just took my eyedropper tool and I clicked right there so that you could see what I've got, the color that I have selected. Okay, and with that, if I take the fuzziness, it's just going to take the shade of red and actually blend it out. And this is where the color wheel comes in that I was telling you about. For example, the color wheel here, it shows you, the fuzziness would be not just this red, but different shades of red moving outward. So that is where the color wheel and the fuzziness comes in. And So with that, I'm just going to take the fuzziness, bump it up, and I can add to my selection a little bit here, and you can also see where it would correspond on the image. But once I have kind of what I'm looking for, and I click OK, it is going to automatically select that shade of color, and with it is going to take, and I can go and do just my select inverse like I did with method 1, and then go back down to image adjustments and hit desaturate. Okay, and that just shows you, it shows you another method that you can use for your isolation there. Okay, so I just showed you 3 different methods there that you can use and experiment around with within Photoshop for color isolations. Now, with this, what I'm going to have you do is you're going to take and you're going to come up with 3 different isolations, okay, where you are going to, between now and on, let's see, I see next week, and I'll put this up on Schoology, but you'll be going out, take pictures of different things that are going on, you know, whether it be the daytime or even around your house, and go through and you're going to do isolate